Hey everyone, as many of you know, I got back from my European baby moon last month, and as promised, I brought back a range of goodies from Hermes, including my dream bag, the Hermes Kelly. For those of you who are interested, next month I'm going to upload a dedicated detailed review about this bag and we're going to dissect it all. But today instead, I thought we'll touch on a hotly debated topic which is very much shrouded in mystery. Where in France do you have the highest chance as a walk-in if you're aiming to score the super rare Birkin or the super rare Kelly? Some of you may remember that 2 years ago I uploaded my tips for how I managed to score the classic noir Togo Birkin 35 from the Paris flagship store. I'm really excited to say that video has reached over 250,000 views and counting, so thank you so much for your wonderful support. In my search for the Kelly, I wanted to look at more scenarios. What are your chances in Paris at the two non-flagship stores? What are your chances outside Paris at a larger or smaller city? And so for that reason, I booked myself 3 days in Lyon, which is France's third largest city, or second if you measure by wealth, alongside 3 days in Bordeaux, which is the 9th largest city measured by commune, and then finally to finish off 5 days in Paris. Today, I'm going to take you through some popular rumors alongside my own real experience so that hopefully you can separate fact from fiction in your own Birkin or Kelly hunting holiday. For those of you who are completely new to the topic, I'm going to offer you a quick background on why France is considered the destination compared to Hermes stores in other countries. So thank you so much for joining me, especially my wonderful, wonderful subscribers. Let's get into it. There are 3 main reasons why Birkin and Kelly hunters trek all the way to France to try their luck. The European price is the cheapest worldwide, especially when you factor in tax back. As a French brand that is entirely made in France, it's your direct access to the stock. And Hermes is sympathetic to the fact that many tourists will just try their luck in the country, skipping the standard conventions by which the rare Birkin or Kelly is usually obtained. For those of you new to the topic, the Birkin or Kelly is usually available to buy or order after you have built a relationship with a sales associate at your local store by spending several $1000s on a range of small purchases over a long period of time. This shows your dedication to the brand, it shows your patience, and as your sales associate would have earned a comfortable commission from all of your purchases, then the next time a rare bag lands in store or it's available to be custom ordered, they put your name forward. So finally you have access to your dream bag. Alternatively, without purchase history and without building a special relationship with a sales associate, you can order the Birkin or Kelly via the waiting list. You're limited to standard finishes and you wait about a year for your bag to arrive. While local residency is the only formal requirement for you to qualify for the waiting list, how you exactly get your name onto that list and place your order is often completely shrouded in mystery. It's up to each store manager to choose when they open and close the list, and in some cities, the list is known to remain closed for years on end. For those of you who watched my tips for how I scored my Birkin at the Paris flagship store, you'll know that I achieved the near impossible. I scored a classic Birkin on my very first go as my very first ever purchase from Hermes. Since then, I bought a silk scarf, which I actually did want, but otherwise my third purchase was the Hermes Kelly, so it does show you can definitely own your dream rare bags without having to jump through all of Hermes's complicated games. Whether or not Hermes bags are actually rare is hotly debated. A viewer whose sister worked for Hermes stated that the brand caps the global annual sale of their rare bags, which means that maybe there could be hundreds more of these bags sitting around in a workshop storeroom just unavailable to the public. By not flooding the market, Hermes keeps market demand high and ensures that the value of the bags keeps rising, which means for you as an owner of these bags, you have a stable and ever-increasing investment piece. There are many articles which state that these bags are considered even more stable investments than you investing in gold, so feel free to do more reading. In this second section, I'm going to share with you 13 tips which summarize everything I've learned about maximizing your chance as a walk-in in France. Everything is relative. Bigger cities mean bigger stores with more stock, but it also means bigger clients and more thorough screening processes. In my experience trying daily in Paris, Lyon and Bordeaux, a mix of larger and smaller cities, my verdict is that the larger cities win. While you do face significantly greater competition, which means your charisma needs to be through the roof, you do have a much higher chance of scoring because there will actually be stock in the back. In a smaller city, no matter how much you seduce your SA and they absolutely adore you, it does not mean anything if there is no Birkin or Kelly in store. Comparing my experience in big and small cities, SAs in big cities will screen you thoroughly and they will play games. Meanwhile, SAs in small cities are straightforward and transparent, so they're far less intimidating. SAs in big cities will look at your purchase history. While you do compete against walk-ins in both big and small cities, it is worth remembering that in big cities you're also competing against wealthy VIPs, where only their rejected stock will be considered on offer to walk-ins. This means that in a bigger city like Lyon, where I'm told there's no stock, it likely means that what they do have is reserved for a known client. On the other hand, in a smaller city like Bordeaux, their claim of no stock is likely legitimate, as they did admit to me that it has been 4 months since their last Kelly shipment. And then finally, increased stock is known to be prioritized for cities popular with tourists, such as Paris. So ultimately, your best bet is to polish your interview skills and try where the stock lies, either in tourist-heavy cities like Paris or in bigger cities which are known to be less wealthy, so that you're competing against less VIPs. For example, Marseille is known to have a higher working class population than Lyon, so in hindsight, I should have probably tried there. For that same reason, I did not try my luck as a walk-in in cities like or the country Monaco, even though I visited those places on my baby moon. It's highly unlikely that places popular with the super rich will need to do any favors for random tourists passing through. The power of Faubourg Saint-Honoré. As I mentioned earlier, SAs in big cities will screen you thoroughly to try and understand your motivation. Their goal is to identify and reject someone who will simply resell the bag the moment they walk out of the store, since Birkins and Kellys can easily sell for double the price on the second-hand market. Outside Paris, the number one factor which I found SAs to engage with was the fact that I had previous shopping history at the famous Paris flagship store Faubourg Saint-Honoré. Their eyes would light up, appearing to recognize me as part of the Hermes family, and they would appreciate the lengths that I went to try and score an appointment, which by no means is easy, and everyone knows that. So if you have any previous experience shopping at FSH, always drop the name for recognition. Purchase history. On the other end of the spectrum, I only just discovered on this trip that the Hermes customer database is not international. While other brands like Gucci capture all of your purchases around the globe at their stores, Hermes France only has a record of your French purchases. Perhaps this is why they have a policy of giving tourists a chance, especially in Paris, because depending on how convincing you are and how well you sweet talk them, they actually have no way of checking and validating whether it's your first time purchasing or you're a veteran Hermes buyer in another country. This creates an even playing field and gives Hermes newbies the biggest advantage. For example, for me, being able to score the classic Birkin as my first ever purchase from the brand 2 years ago. If you plan to buy 1 or 2 Hermes items in your lifetime, I would recommend that you wait to buy them in France to boost your profile there. Plus, you can use them strategically as a gateway to accessing the Birkin or Kelly, but more on this technique later. Prove you're not a reseller. Hermes's number one fear is accidentally selling their precious bags to a reseller. So a popular online tip is for you to bring into store the last Birkin or Kelly you received, so that you can immediately soothe your SA's concerns because you still have the bag, you haven't gotten rid of it. Unfortunately for me, my Birkin 35 is not only large and heavy, but it's also too precious for me to lug it around Europe for 4 weeks by the beach. So I brought instead a logo-free, non-offensive black handbag. At least my success shows that you're not disadvantaged if you can't fulfill this tip. Timing is crucial. Remember that all Hermes stores in France close on Sunday. They close for the 1-hour lunch break, and the months of July and August are known to have the least stock because the French, including workshop artisans, will take their summer vacations. Deliveries are store specific, but popular online rumors state that it's Wednesday or Friday. And Friday actually got confirmed for me by 2 essays that I met, the one in Bordeaux and also the one at the Rue des Sèvres store in Paris. So generally it's believed that you have a higher chance on weekdays than weekends, with possibly Friday being your day to score. Although saying that, I did receive my gorgeous Kelly on a Tuesday morning. In Paris, there are 3 Hermes stores that do sell bags, and all of them require appointments, which apparently is a new change that came about from November last year. While with the Paris flagship store, it's an online system, which I do detail in my video on how I scored my Birkin. The appointment system for the remaining 2 stores are arranged when you physically enter the store. For that reason, if you want any bag, even if it's not the Birkin or Kelly, ideally you will line up as early as possible. For example, for the Avenue George V store, which opens at 10:15 a.m, when I got there at 9:50, I was already the 10th person in queue. The first 20 people are assigned an essay on the spot, while everyone else is given a time slot in the day and they're told to come back later. I found that by 10:40 a.m, all the appointments for the whole day were taken. So for new patrons who just arrived requesting to look at bags, they would be turned away and they would be told to try again tomorrow. On the other hand, if you're looking at other accessories, you can walk in anytime and be assigned a essay. It's only the bag department which is highly competitive. Note all appointments, whether online or in-store, require you to register your passport number, and you cannot claim the appointment or purchase the item unless that passport number belongs to you. There's no mixing allowed if your friends or your family help you to secure the appointment. And finally, you need a working phone number, whether that's local or international. Trying early versus late in the day. Paris is the only city in France which has more than one Hermes store stocking handbags, so technically means you have more than one chance every day. While I did mention the importance of arriving early, that doesn't mean you don't stand a chance if you also try in the afternoon. First, let's look at the scenario of you arriving at the stores nice and early. Assuming you line up first at Avenue George V, since it does open earlier at 10:15 a.m, and assuming you leave the store by 10:30, it is possible for you to reach your second Hermes store, Rue des Sèvres, by 11 a.m, since it takes roughly 20 minutes to get there by taxi or transport plus waiting time. Like 10:40 for Avenue George V, noon can be considered the cutoff for Rue des Sèvres for you to score an appointment that day. However, if you don't get to try in the morning, there's no harm trying the afternoon. For the ever busy Faubourg Saint-Honoré, this means trying after 5 p.m. However, for quieter stores like the Rue des Sèvres, this means you can try from 3 p.m. You just pop in and say that you didn't manage to score an appointment that day for Faubourg Saint-Honoré or any other stores that you have tried, but you're willing to wait around for an available essay in the bag department. If they're not busy, they will definitely slot you in. However, don't be surprised if you also just get a flat out no, which is what I received at Faubourg Saint-Honoré. Always stay elegant. What to wear is a hotly debated topic, and for those of you who watch my video on how I scored my Birkin at the Paris flagship, you'll know that I wore nothing designer, not even a handbag. Although wearing non-branded items can actually work in your favor, as they can be interpreted as very high-end luxury goods with concealed logos. This time I similarly dressed in non-branded clothing, although on my 4th to 9th attempt I did style an Hermes silk scarf which I purchased on my last day in Lyon. While wearing Hermes or branded goods does not guarantee an advantage, I do highly recommend you grab the Hermes silk scarf, which comes in a range of sizes and prices. A silk scarf is a very simple and elegant touch which really completes your outfit in an Hermes way, just like the way pearls are very Chanel. Plus, there's dozens of options for styling, so it can look like a fresh accessory every time. Overall, I believe you should dress in an elegant manner where the essay can picture you with the Birkin or Kelly. Keep your behavior elegant as well. Be polite, speak as much French as possible, be grateful, patient, and understanding, especially when you're not successful. Be memorable. It's important to remember that all Hermes essays, especially in big cities, get asked all day, every day for the Birkin or Kelly. If you walk in and you ask them that question, you're going to trigger their automatic response, which is, we do not have any Birkin or Kellys, we do not know when we're getting stock, etc. The only way you can move past their default answer is if you stand out in their eyes. Explain your story and why the Birkin or the Kelly means so much to you, alongside showing off your passion and your knowledge of Hermes products. Coming from Australia, I find that always earns some sympathy points from essays, because they know that I would have traveled one of the further distances in the world to try my luck in France, so I always slip that in nice and early. A viewer whose sister worked for Hermes stated that they're trained to score all conversations out of 0 to 5 depending on the qualities they're looking for, and you don't stand a chance of landing the rare Birkin or the Kelly unless you land at 5. The hard part is not talking their ear off and making a rehearsed, planned conversation seem as natural as possible. Whether it's your pace or your word choice or your body language or your eye contact, keep practicing your script and look at how you can naturally transition into requesting a Birkin or Kelly once they have your background information. Jump through hoops. Another factor which I found essays to be looking for, so likely it's part of their scoring system, is proof that you have jumped through hoops for the brand. Scoring a Birkin or a Kelly is not supposed to be easy. They want to know that you've been trying in your local country, how many years you've been trying, how many days in France you've been trying with no success, how many days you've been trying to get an online appointment for Paris Faubourg Saint-Honoré with no success, plus the day you're actually leaving, because for them that's your final chance at the bag. While you could bluff all of the above, ideally it will come from a genuine place and a genuine experience so that the emotion really resonates with your essay. For example, for me personally, I only succeeded in scoring my Kelly on my 9th visit to Hermes, not to mention 2 failed attempts at trying to get an appointment at Paris Faubourg Saint-Honoré, in my 8th consecutive day of trying in my 3rd French city, not to mention I'm pregnant and I've flown 24 hours from Australia. So can you see how an essay cannot easily refuse me? Form a connection. Ultimately, the goal of appearing elegant, standing out from the crowd, and showing off your perseverance and patience is to form a connection with your essay, so they don't see you as another bag-hungry commoner who will simply pawn it off the moment you walk out the door, but instead as a refined individual who appreciates the craftsmanship and art which Hermes is renowned for, and that you will not disgrace the Hermes name. Generally, I find that in big cities, you can gauge your level of success with your essay based off the following responses. 1. There are no Birkins or Kellys in the store. 0%. 2. They agree to check the stock, but they have not looked at your purchase history, even though you made it clear you're a repeat customer. 0%. This is just a polite euphemism for you failed. 3. They review your purchase details, which they may have questions about, and they agree to check the stock. You've successfully passed your essay screening, and now it's just a matter of whether or not there's actually Birkins or Kellys in the back, which match the description of the type of bag you like. And then lastly, if they return within 5 minutes, you've failed. If they take at least 15 minutes, which for my Kelly took almost 25, it means you've succeeded. A viewer whose sister worked for Hermes stated that they do not need all that time to look for the bag, it's just to build your anxiety. Another way you can tell you've succeeded is that they come back with a big orange box, and they will also ask you to follow them to a very private part of the store where there's nobody around. So for me personally, my essay took me up the lift to another floor. We went into a private room and he closed the door behind us, so it was just the 2 of us. In a smaller city, your purchase history is not important. The essay would just agree to check the stock if they formed a genuine connection with you. Even if there are no Birkins or Kellys in the store that day, if your SA is comfortable chatting with you, continue to connect. Continue to show off your passion and your knowledge and your determination to keep trying. Always ask if they are working the next few days you're around and grab their name for reference. Even if you never see them again, it really helps for you to drop their name to the next SA as proof that you have already been visiting the store to show off your dedication. And it also suggests that you've passed some level of pre-screening because you formed a connection with their colleague. Use purchases as a gateway. On my third attempt in Lyon, I decided to try a new strategy where instead of conversing with my SA straight up, I would first make a purchase. That's when I purchased my silk scarf, which was actually an item I wanted from Hermes. The custom is that following a purchase, they will always ask if you want to look at anything else, and that's your opening to mention a Birkin or a Kelly. Ideally, your question would not feel out of the blue because during your first and while you're selecting, you can show off your passion and your knowledge and you'll be connecting with your SA. I knew I had gained my SA's approval when she agreed to check my purchase history and she agreed to check the back room for stock, even though during our earlier conversation she had said Birkins and Kellys were impossible, don't even think about it. Unfortunately for me, there actually were no Kellys in the store that day. She offered me instead a Lindy, which I turned down. Place an order. A great tip I received, although it did not work out for me personally, was that for stores in smaller cities, they may accept your custom order and then you can return roughly a year later to pick up your bag. I did try this in Lyon and Bordeaux, but I was rejected both times. My friend succeeded in Lille, the 10th largest city by commune, but it is worth noting that she speaks French fluently as a Canadian national, so perhaps that did help her, because generally these custom orders in every city is only offered to local residents. Still, it doesn't hurt to try, and it is worth noting that many years ago, Paris Hermes stores did allow tourists to place custom orders, although they scraped that system entirely just because of the sheer volume of tourists today who go to Paris on a Birkin or Kelly hunting agenda. Faubourg Saint-Honoré verdict. While I have made it pretty clear by now that larger cities mean larger chances, ultimately will you be more successful at the Paris Faubourg Saint-Honoré flagship versus the other two stores in Paris? All 5 days I tried for an online appointment at Faubourg Saint-Honoré and all 5 days I failed. On my first day I tried appearing at Faubourg Saint-Honoré in the afternoon to see if they could slip me in, but the answer was so clearly no chance that I did not attempt that again, especially since the very next morning I scored my dream Kelly at the Avenue George store. All the SAs I met in Lyon, Bordeaux and Rue de Sèvres mentioned that the most stock is held at Faubourg Saint-Honoré. However, if you're like me and you can't even get your foot in the door after 5 days of trying, I would say you stand a much better chance scoring yourself a guaranteed appointment by lining up in the morning outside one of the other two stores in Paris. Do your best to seduce your SA as per all the tips I've shared earlier, because my gorgeous dream Kelly is absolute proof that dreams are definitely granted outside Faubourg Saint-Honoré. A viewer whose sister worked for Hermes mentioned that they also do use the personal details you submit via the online registration for the flagship store to try and pre-screen you via social media. The goal is to eliminate people who might be resellers, but I am concerned that collectors like me who share Hermes secrets via YouTube, maybe that gets me blacklisted. Finally, in this section, I want to clarify an error I made in my original video about the flagship store, alongside sharing something new I learned. The online appointment website mimics the same opening hours as the flagship store. In other words, since the flagship, like all Hermes stores, is not open on Sunday, then the website is also closed all of Sunday. This means that if you want an appointment for Monday, you have to actually submit it 2 days prior during the working hours of Saturday. Otherwise, for any other day, you just submit your request online 1 day beforehand. The error I made in my original video about the flagship store was that I assumed the online appointment system was served on a first in, first served basis. As you may remember, I submitted my request 20 seconds after the clock ticked 10:30 a.m. on a Thursday, which was lightning fast, and then I succeeded in scoring the 10:30 a.m. first appointment of the day for Friday. On the same trip, I tried to replicate that technique, but it failed multiple times. I also tried submitting my form at random times, like 10:48 a.m., 12:12 p.m., again with no success. Since there are many stories of people succeeding at random times in the afternoon, I guess it's safe to say it's definitely a raffle system. It's based on luck, and as the viewer's sister who worked at Hermes stated, it's also based on some level of pre-screening via social media. Finally, in this last and final section, I'm going to share with you some variables and other opportunities which I didn't get to try in my experiment, so you may like to consider them. As important as your interview and relationship skills are, ultimately the make or break is stock, and therefore delivery days are crucial. In larger cities, it can be assumed that Birkins and Kellys are delivered every week. So ideally, you would try every day in the city from Monday to Saturday and use Sundays as your day for transit, since no Hermes store is open. If the online rumors are true, then consider Fridays and possibly Wednesdays as your best chance for stock. So therefore, try to make your first day of trying in each new city, each new environment outside those days, so you have a chance to practice. I was so nervous on my very first go that I got rejected straight away. On my second day and second attempt, I said about 80% of what I had planned, but by the third day I was confident and extremely persuasive. So from that day forward, I had no issue at all being able to connect with my essays, being able to persuade them to check the stock for me, and it just became a game of chance and timing of when my gorgeous Kelly would be in store. Another strategy worth considering is asking your partner to try for you. Mature men are generally profiled as serious buyers, and they can't be scrutinized as heavily by essays because it's understood they're buying Birkins or Kellys as gifts for their wives. So therefore they can't be analyzed and scrutinized about their knowledge in colors and leathers, which an essay would usually do if a woman is buying the bag for herself. While my husband and I did spend 5 days in Nice, and I am pregnant with our first child, which is the perfect emotional tug for an essay, I didn't personally ask this of him. I just wanted us to enjoy our baby moon. However, if you and your partner are comfortable, why not give it a shot? Finally, following the logic of tourist-heavy cities receiving more rare stock, it is said that popular international tourist destinations like Las Vegas and Hawaii should be generously stocked with Birkins and Kellys. You should stand a good chance as a walk-in. However, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, since the European price is the cheapest worldwide, I personally have focused on France. And if I ever do expand my Birkin or Kelly collection, I will likely continue to build my purchase history in Paris alongside giving Marseille a shot. So everyone, that brings me to the end of my video, which summarizes everything I've learned about maximizing your chance as a walk-in in France. I'm sure a lot of my tips can apply if you're thinking of trying in other destinations around the globe, whether it be other European countries or other continents. Ultimately, as we've said, it's a stock game, and it's about you passing your essay screening. Some of you may remember that with my first Hermes flagship store experience, I found it incredibly intimidating and my essay was quite cold and hostile, but I am glad to say that this time every single essay I met in Lyon, Bordeaux and Paris were wonderful. Obviously some were friendlier than others, but overall it was very professional and I really enjoyed the whole experience. So for those of you who are still working towards your dream Birkin or Kelly, I wish you all the best of luck. Keep persevering, don't give up. For those of you who, like me, adore the Kelly or are particularly fascinated by the one that I picked up, I do hope to see you again next month when I review this beauty in detail. Hope you guys have an amazing month. I'll see you again soon.